All right, we're rolling.
This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of the world-famous Comedy Cellar, available wherever you get your podcasts, available in particular on YouTube, where people seem to enjoy the podcast most. We have audio and visual. This is Dan Natterman with Noam Dwarman. Welcome back. Noam was sick last week, but he looks like he's in fighting form today. We have Perry L. Ashenbrand.
Hello.
And with us via the miracle of teleconferencing, Dr. John Gartner, clinical psychologist, former assistant professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University Medical School, joins us. Hello. How are you, Mr. Gartner? Or Dr. Gartner?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. That's okay. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Gartner, before we get into the issue at the hand, do you have anything you want to tell us about Dan? In your 10 minutes of hearing his off-air patter.
Yeah, well, since I've become known for diagnosing at a distance, I guess I could make some wild speculations, but I don't have enough data.
Now, perhaps you will by the end of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, give me some time.
Maybe at the end you can give us a rundown on our own personalities. Perry L is going to be obvious.
Sure.
Now you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist? Because Dan said both things.
Actually, I'm a psychologist, but people make that mistake sometimes because I taught in the Department of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins Medical School for 28 years.
Now, just secure, are they like snobby about psychologists? Are psychiatrists a little arrogant about psychologists?
Well, they're arrogant about everything at Hopkins, but it's a good thing that I've retired because it saved them the trouble of having to fire me, since they probably would have given my pronouncements about Trump, which violate the APA's Goldwater rule.
Oh, let's just start there. So you are a psychologist who since Trump came down the escalator almost, you've been warning us that Trump has mental issues. And the issues are both. I'll let you speak, of course, but narcissism, personality disorder, and also dementia or early cognitive decline. Correct. So,
yes.
And you already alluded to it. There was a very strong rule that professionals were not supposed to diagnose people that they didn't actually examine themselves. So that's what you said you get in trouble for. Well, tell us about that.
Actually, that's not the rule, and it's important to mention this. We do diagnose patients that we haven't met sometimes. We can do it by history, by talking to significant informants, by observation. The rule is that you can't diagnose public figures that you haven't interviewed. So why would public figures be made a special case? Well, because public figures can have power, especially if they're politicians, to hurt the profession. And the American Psychiatric Association is a guild above all else. So, for example, during the Trump administration, there was some movement to relax the Goldwater rule, given the need to warn the public about his gross pathology. And they had a meeting about it at the American Psychiatric Association, and this was reported on in the New Yorker. My colleague John Zinner was quoted as having been at the ethics committee meeting where they actually strengthened the Goldwater rule rather than relaxing it. And the reason they gave is, if we allow people to make statements about Trump, he'll cut our third-party payments. Now later they said they were joking, but I don't think they were.
Now, is that the only reason that, because the reason that would come to my mind is that when you are dealing with public people, especially politicians of all people, you're dealing with a version of themselves that is by its own nature a strategy that they're presenting to the public. So it could be a very poor indication of who they are. And how would you diagnose somebody based on a strategy? Let me give you an example. One might think that Trump is a pathological liar because of all the election denial, right? Like, this is like, maybe what the hell is with this guy? He's crazy. But then if I were Trump's defender, I'd say, listen, he has a very significant psychological insight there. He knows if he admits that he lost, he's a loser, and his base is never going to rally behind a loser. But if he decides, I'm just going to tell them that I was robbed, and I was robbed and you were robbed, they will rally around me in a way that they would never rally around a loser. So I'm going to say that I was robbed. And given the fact that he won, it would be difficult to say that he was pathological because he was kind of proven right. So like, that's an example of how, like, we don't really know what's going on behind the curtain, right?
I would imagine that's baked in. It's not what he says, but how he says it that you're looking at.
Well,
Well,
yeah, doctor, go ahead.
yeah, it could be a strategy. It could be a strategy that could work for him. But we do know that he's a liar. We actually know that he's the most documented liar in the history of humanity.
Yeah. More than Hitler?
I don't know that Hitler was a
Yes.
liar. Well, I guess he.
Yes, Hitler was a liar.
Okay. That's not what he's mainly known for.
Yes, he was a liar, but the Washington Post stopped counting Trump's lies after they hit 30,000. I mean,
A lot.
there's no one else
Yeah, a lot of those lies
who's
were
even a second close.
a lot of
Not
those
even a
were.
close second.
I don't know if we look. A lot of those were not. I mean, listen. Far be it for me to say he's not a liar. He lies all the time. But anybody
Yes.
home, you should look up that Washington Post thing because they threw everything in the kitchen sink. I mean, so for instance, number 4 on the Washington Post's list of Trump's lies is, quote, "Our first lady has been a woman of great grace and beauty and dignity, and so popular with the people, so popular with the people." The Washington Post rates that as a lie. It says, in reality, Melania Trump leaves the White House with the worst popularity rating for any first lady at the end of her term in polling history. So this is the kind of thing they throw in with a very healthy number of outright lies. I mean, anyway, I mean, obviously a lot of politicians lie. Bill Clinton lied an awful lot. we got to say, when does a politician lying cross the line to being a personality disorder?
Well, it's an excellent question. So one of the things that changed in the 1980s, that after the Goldwater rule was passed, is we adopted a diagnostic system where we form our diagnoses on the basis of observable behavior. So if you can observe someone's behavior, then you can form a diagnosis. So, for example, just to take one of the aspects of his personality disorder, which is psychopathy, the first criteria is
for Periel's
why.
sake, would you explain what that is?
Sure, antisocial personality disorder. It's the criminal personality. So it's one component of malignant narcissism. So he has narcissism, psychopathy, paranoia, and sadism. Those are the 4 components of malignant narcissism. Well, the criteria are lying. Well, that's well documented. As I said, the most documented liar in recorded human history. Mm-hmm. Violating laws and norms. Well, he's a convicted felon, and we know he's violated every norm of the presidency.
Which felony? What was he convicted of doing?
Well, weren't there like 34 felonies?
But it was convicted of paying his mistress off from the wrong bank account. I mean, that's a little weak, isn't it? But go ahead.
Well,
just to be fair,
he was convicted of it.
Okay,
well,
but
I mean,
I know.
And also, let's look at all the crimes he was indicted for that we never got a chance to even have the trial, because when he won the election, they erased his indictment by Jack Smith, his indictment by Georgia. Let me try to steal the election, and he was indicted for it.
Let me tell you where I'm coming from. I have no instinct that makes me reluctant to admit that Trump is either in cognitive decline or a narcissist. I think the narcissism is more obvious than the cognitive decline. But I hate to hear it from the people who seem to have an agenda against the guy already. Like if you think like you're a man of science, you think about double-blind experiments. You would never want anybody telling you about the efficacy of a drug who had an emotional attachment to that drug working. You know, it's hard for me to hear about Trump's.
You've just described all of psychiatric research, which are funded by the manufacturers. So
right. But that's why they don't get to decide. It has to go to the FDA requires trials, and the trials have very strict experiments. But so when I have a doctor in front of me, someone who's identified himself as part of the resistance, now that doesn't mean that you're not being fair. But when you mention things that I actually know quite a lot about, like the fact that this Stormy Daniels thing, which was I'm a lawyer, it's just such a ridiculous charge. Even if he did or didn't do it, like you know, you had former heads of the FEC saying this is a ridiculous charge. There was no way he could know which way to, you know, that gets then leveraged as evidence of his criminality to fit him into the category of the same people who, you know, rape and you know, harm people and do terrible crimes. A felony is a felony.
Oh, you mean like the way Like the way he sexually violated people, he's an adjudicated rapist.
What?
So if we want to talk about the
No,
other criteria,
I don't think
but
he was not accused of. He was not accused. He was adjudicated something, not rapist. We could maybe you can Google it. Not rapist. But yes, that's a civil trial. 30 years old. That has its own problems too. But that would be a much stronger case, yes, than this Stormy Daniels thing. Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, I agree with you. The thing that he was actually convicted of is the least of the things he was charged with. But if he had not won the election, we would have had the opportunity to see the Georgia case go through and see the Jack Smith case go through. And I would argue that an attempt to overthrow the government of the United States is a pretty serious charge. And he's guilty of it.
Sexual abuse and defamation, not rape.
Sexual what?
Abuse.
Sexual abuse
and defamation is what
specifically declined to find that he was liable for rape.
Yeah. So this is a kind of thing that anyway. It's very important.
But it's still violating the rights of others. It's still violating the rights of others. The point is, as a psychopath, whether he penetrated her with his penis or with his finger, which is what the issue about is whether it's sexual attack or whether it's rape. It's still in the general category of violating the rights of others. This is someone who violates the rights of others and feels no guilt or remorse about it. It's his modus operandi.
Yeah. Well, we have. I mean, the frequency with which people have accused this guy of these things has to be respected. On the other hand, he has his defenders who've been with him a long time. But so let's go through the things one at a time. The dementia thing actually really disturbs me. I'm almost ready to stipulate to the narcissism, although I don't even know what that means in terms of the danger of having a narcissist as president, because I feel like we've had narcissists as president before. I mean, if you look,
he's a malignant narcissist, which is different than just a narcissist.
Okay.
Most politicians are narcissists, but when we talk about adding psychopathy and paranoia and sadism, this malignant narcissism is actually a diagnosis that was introduced by Erich Fromm after World War II to explain the psychology of Hitler and other. He meant it to be a type, not just to describe Hitler, but to describe leaders like Hitler who are murderous, grandiose dictators. So it's the most dangerous personality disorder that exists. It's not just garden variety narcissism. Everyone says, "Oh, my boss was a narcissist. My wife was a narcissist." This is different. This is someone who is fundamentally destructive and malignant, and highly, highly destructive.
So let's get to. By the way, just as an aside, and then I want to do the cognitive decline first. I was driving in today, and I don't know what I was listening to, but somebody was discussing John F. Kennedy, who had pressured this girl that he knew to go over and give oral sex to another guy at the pool, who had they do suspect had robbed the election both in Texas and in what was the other state? Illinois. There's a lot of and these are stories that have come up from a time when there wasn't such an adversarial press to where everything would emerge. So the question is, I mean, obviously, it's always tough to decide when a matter of degree becomes a difference in kind, or whatever that expression is. Like, you have a little bit of something, and at some point you have to say, everybody does this to some extent, but we're at a threshold here where it just can't be called ordinary anymore. It crosses the line between, as you're saying, between other narcissistic presidents. They're all narcissists, but he's in a different category, and his category is dangerous and malignant, and I think you believe 25th Amendment worthy, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with the cognitive decline.
Well, at this point, getting back to his cognitive decline, he's really 25th Amendment worthy on basis of his dementia at this point. So to talk about the dementia, look, when we diagnose dementia, we have to see a noticeable decline in the person's baseline level of functioning in 4 areas: language, memory, behavior, and psychomotor performance. So, for example, when if you look at tape of him in the 1980s, he was extremely articulate. People don't realize this or remember this. He spoke in polished paragraphs. Now he has difficulty completing a sentence, a thought, or sometimes even a word. His speech is totally tangential. He goes from one non sequitur to another. He confabulates. He imagines things, remembers things that never really happened. So this is a whole level of deterioration in terms of his gait. If you've noticed, he has something we call a wide base gait, where he swings his right leg as if it's sort of a dead weight. That's been getting worse and worse. In terms of his memory. remember.
Let's pause here. Let Dan.
Well, from when would you date this decline? From was it evident in 2016 or prior to that?
Well, I published op-eds with some physicians in 2019 where we were saying that there were signs of dementia. And actually, we were among the group that actually pressured Ronnie Jackson to give him the MOCA in 2019, which he then has still been narcissistically stung about. He keeps bragging about how he got the best score on the MOCA ever. The doctors couldn't believe it. And it's just a dementia screening exam that they keep giving him, by the way, over and over again. We don't give people a screening exam over and over again unless we keep seeing signs of cognitive decline that suggest we need to screen for it. And now they're giving him more cognitive tests.
Do you see a difference between 2016 or 2019 when you first published the op-ed and today? Is there? It seems like it's moving very, very slowly. If indeed it is dementia.
Well, I would disagree with you, and the people who know Trump best would disagree with you as well. The people who served with him in the first administration have said, really to a man or a woman, he's not the same man he was 4 years ago. So he has deteriorated noticeably since that time.
All right, this is what I want. I really want to push back on this because it actually disturbs me. So first of all, just to give some context, you're right. So in Stat News, which is a very prestigious publication,
Yeah, it is.
in 2017 had an article, Trump wasn't always linguistically challenged. What could explain his change? Vanity Fair in 2017, experts, Trump's speaking style raises questions about his brain health. The Atlantic, is something neurologically wrong with Donald Trump? The Guardian in 2018, Trump is dangerous. That makes his mental health a matter of public interest. So Politico, we're psychiatrists. It's our duty to question the president's mental state. So this was almost from the beginning something people were saying. Now, a few things. I did some research, and the odds that somebody who actually had cognitive decline in 2017 would be as high functioning as Trump is today, according to the research I did, is very, very unlikely. That if you are showing the kind of cognitive decline which is being described, where you can't finish sentences and you can't make words and you can't remember anything, in 2017, 8 years later, you are going to need assistance to do basic things. But we see Trump out there handling questions about this, handling questions about that. He does a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast where he speaks about 40 different things. I was shocked, like the guy knew about this and knew about that. Things I didn't even know Trump knew about. He's pulling out names. This is not obvious cognitive. Let me get it all out and then you can say, because I know you're going to disagree. But more importantly than that, to me, people like Bob Woodward, well, actually, let's leave Woodward out for a second. John Kelly, McMaster, Bolton, maybe one other, Tillerson, I think. They all came out after the first administration with books and interviews, essentially saying, "Don't ever let Trump be president again. This guy is erratic. He's arrogant. He doesn't read it. Like a million different things. Like, don't ever give that guy the keys again. He's going to get us in trouble. He's going to pull out of NATO." What none of them said, I went through all their books today. Not one of them said in their books he showed memory issues. He showed cognitive decline. We were worried about his mental acuity. Not one. Now, it's impossible for me to believe that these people, John Kelly was his chief of staff, and he hated him, that he would devote himself to an entire book and never mention, and by the way, he was obviously in cognitive decline, but they're the ones who would know. They worked with him every day, full time, and they hate him. So how do you account for the fact? And then Woodward also, as Woodward wrote 2 books, Peril and Fear. I went through both of them today with Control Fs. Not once did Woodward report anybody saying Trump was declining mentally. Narcissist, asshole, yes. Now, how do you explain that?
Well, you should read Michael Wolff's biographies.
Yeah, but
because
Michael
he does
Wolff,
talk about.
but Michael Wolff is a known fabulist. He's been dinged a million times, but he didn't spend 8 hours a day in the Oval Office with Trump. Michael Wolff is not a reliable guy. Nobody thinks Michael Wolff is reliable.
Look,
not on Epstein, not on
Wolff
anything.
Well, he talks about him not recognizing people he's known for years. But
That happens
just
to
to
me.
give a more
Happens to me
current
too.
Example,
Yeah.
Just to give a more current example. So during the government shutdown, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries went to negotiate with Trump, and Trump later said that he met with Chuck Schumer and he brought a very nice man with him, a very nice man. Well, that sort of implies that he's never met Hakeem Jeffries, doesn't know who he is. And obviously, he's the minority leader of the House. He knows very well who Hakeem Jeffries is. He put a sombrero and a mustache on him in his social media account. So for him to say he brought a very nice man with him, that's like going to the nursing home with your sister to meet your demented mother. And she goes, "Who's that nice woman you brought with her?" "Oh, Mom, that's your other daughter. That's my sister."
I don't know. I meet, I'm in a profession. I meet so many people. I can't tell you how regular it is for me for somebody to show up and say, "Do you remember me?" I say, "I try," and maybe it'll come back to me. I mean, it is
me sometimes.
Yeah, it is in a certain way, to some extent, because I'm in my 60s. But I can remember this in my 40s. Like, I mean, how many times in my 40s I'd say to my wife, like, I don't remember their name. When you go there, introduce yourself. So they say, this is common stuff for a politician who literally sees thousands of people.
One time I had her scurry off to the bathroom to go through my Facebook friends to identify somebody.
Yeah, this is normal stuff, but it doesn't really counter what I'm saying, which is that if I had cognitive decline, is there some way that my general manager, my wife, my kids, the people I spend all my time with, who I talk about appointments and have to recount arguments and things we spoke about yesterday and things we spoke about last week and policies, they would say he's slipping. We spoke about this yesterday, Noam. Don't you remember last week we said this? Like, if they don't identify it, I think it's very weak.
Well, first of all, I think your premise is incorrect.
Okay.
The people who have worked with him in his past administration have said he's slipping. They're saying he's not the same guy, that he's lost a step.
You're saying
this
time?
In this short period. Yes, that people who worked with him in his last administration have said that he has deteriorated noticeably from when they were working with him 4 years ago.
Can you send me out?
The nature of dementia. The nature of dementia is a deteriorating illness.
Will you send me after the
signs at first, then they get worse, and then what we're seeing is then the deterioration starts to accelerate. We are now at the stage where the deterioration is accelerating, where we see a difference from month over month, not year over year.
Okay.
And what we're getting to is a point where he is going to fall off a cognitive cliff, and he's not going to be compass mentis. He's not going to make it to the end of his term.
Right. Will you send me when this interview ends a link to whatever it is that you're referring to now, so I can include it in the show, because I always hate to just have things said that I can't that I have no evidence for. Like if whoever it is that you're referring to who's saying that now. So true to his word, the doctor did send me some links. I'll put them all in the show notes. Two of them I think can be characterized as former members of the first Trump administration. One is Elisa Farah Griffin. I'm reading Wikipedia. 2017, she was appointed Special Assistant to the President and Press Secretary to Vice President Mike Pence. As Press Secretary to the Vice President, she traveled with Pence on numerous trips, domestic and foreign, and was part of the official U.S. delegation to the Munich Security Conference and ASEAN Summit. 2019, she became Press Secretary for the United States Department of Defense. And the second one is from former National Security Advisor John Bolton. I will let you listen to them and make up your own minds.
If you're going to be critical of Joe Biden, you have to look at the glaring warning signs about Donald Trump. Listening to him now does not sound like him in 2016.
Right.
And he was not ever particularly eloquent. 2016, it's not like he was William Shakespeare
really
by
nice
any means.
That was said nicely.
But it is there. I'm recognizing and seeing a decline in him. Others who've known him have said it. And I think that matters because, I mean, from comparing Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley to confusing the president of Turkey with the president of Hungary to confusing Obama and Biden left and right. He does this constantly. He's not where he once was. And yeah, exactly. It's the looks. I'm convinced that the stress of having lost the 2020 election, the legal, the convictions, the indictments, all just piling up, and him finally maybe being held accountable. 34 conviction, felony counts, and then
I'm just asking.
In these pending trials, I think they're getting to him, and I don't think that he's as sharp as he once was, and I don't recognize how his voters don't see that.
But I would say 95% plus of NATO's planning during the Cold War and since then has been concerned about a Russian attack. That is the fundamental motivating factor why the alliance was created and why it still exists today. And we have sided now in this vote with NATO's principal adversary. It's just unthinkable that a president could do that.
Do you believe when Trump would not call Putin a dictator earlier, is that a negotiating strategy, or do you think he just doesn't think he is one?
Look, Trump's defenders say everything he says is a negotiating strategy, including when he says A and the next day says not A. It's all just a negotiating strategy. I think it's an indication his mind is full of mush, and he says whatever comes into it. He believes Vladimir Putin is his friend. And, you know, you don't call your friends dictators. He doesn't like Volodymyr Zelensky. He hasn't liked him since the perfect phone call of the summer of 2018. So it's no sweat off his back to go ahead and call Zelensky a dictator. This is somebody who is not fit to be president. He can't tell America's friends from its enemies.
Is the nature of dementia, as you stated, sort of slowly at first and then a cliff, as you describe it? At a certain point?
Exactly. It's how you go broke. Slowly, slowly at first and then all at once.
Ernest Hemingway.
Exactly. Well, we're heading towards that. Look, let me just read you 3 sentences, okay, from verbatim, just to give you an idea of how tangential his thinking is. This was on the USS Washington on October 28th. I never liked good-looking people. I never admitted that before, but you see, I'm allowed to because we won in the Supreme Court based on merit. You know about that, right? Now everything in this country is based on merit. Does that make sense to you?
Not without the context, but I'd like to see the video.
You're welcome to watch it. But this is how the press is.
We'll
saying
find that video.
These things. They show us. Please do.
Yeah. No, we'll find it. I'll find the clip. So I looked this one up. Here's Trump reading some prepared remarks and then going off script about the good-looking men and women in the audience and then going back onto the script. You be the judge.
The fact is, we do make the best weapons, but if you don't have the right people to operate those weapons, they don't mean much. Despite that, as Commander-in-Chief, I never forget that our ultimate strength does not come from equipment. It comes from the men and women of the rank and file. That's true. It comes from you people, incredible people, good-looking people, too many good-looking people. I don't like good-looking people. I never liked good-looking people, I'll be honest with you. I've never admitted that before. But see, I'm allowed to, we won in the Supreme Court a thing based on merit. You know about that, right? Merit. Everything now in our country is based on merit. And that's why I look at you and I see nothing but merit. It's great to have a country back where we can go by merit now. We don't go by anything else except for talent and work and hard work. And it's such a big win. That was one of the most important wins. And the will, patriotism, and spirit in your hearts is our single greatest weapon. The strength that you have is unbelievable. That's why, as we make a record investment in our military, we've never spent so much, and we've never spent it more wisely because now we watch it.
You want to hear another one?
Sure.
This is at the McDonald's Summit on November 17th. Like heroes, they're American heroes. Who the heck wants to sit? Those ships are very big, but they're very small. When you're way up high, going very fast, and he said it was the greatest day of his life. And they told me something I didn't know. Sir, we waited 22 years for this. Our predecessors and us would practice this run for 22 years. I didn't know that for 22 years.
What are they talking about?
Practice.
I'm assuming they're talking about something.
Well, isn't that the point? That we can't figure out what he's talking
about.
No. He's incomprehensible.
If he's standing on a ship on the day after a mission is completed, he wouldn't need to say that in that quote. This one, off the top of his head, Trump is talking about the pilots who bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities. And he seems clearly to be referring to the fact that they had to sit in very small cockpits.
But think of it, they flew both ways 37 hours without a sputtering of a bad engine, without any problem, but they got in and they said they have entered Iran airspace and the enemy's waiting for them. And they dropped the bombs, they hit every chute. They have air chutes that go deep into the granite mountains. If you don't hit those chutes, the damage won't be as big as you want. And every bomb hit every chute. And then we hit them with rockets from a submarine that was quite a distance away, 30 of them. Let's put it this way, they got hit. and it totally took out the nuclear capability. And I said to these guys when they came in to the office, I said, do you guys like doing this stuff? You know, they said, sir, it was the greatest day of our life. Can you believe this, Congressman? It was the great, I mean, they're like heroes. They're like American heroes. Who the hell wants to sit, you know, those ships are very big, but they're very small when you're up way high, going very fast. And he said, it was the greatest day of our life. And they told me something that I didn't know. They said that, sir, do you know, we waited 22 years for this, our predecessors and us. We would practice this run for 22 years.
Well, let me continue. Maybe it'll come to you. Maybe it'll come to you as I keep reading it. We do it 3 times a year because they cancel when they heard we were coming. We were devastated. I say if I were a flyer and they cancel, I'd be extraordinarily happy. Well, we're canceled, so let's forget it. But we were devastated. So I said, this is something you really love. Oh, yes, sir. We're so honored. It was the greatest day of our lives. I mean, it was
Can
really
you do
great.
it? Can you make it sound more like Trump?
People in the sky. It's an amazing story. And they hit. And they say skedaddle. The word skedaddle. And the plane went like this. And you know, that's more speed for the bomb, a very, very heavy bomb. And they go boom.
Was this about?
As soon as those things.
Sorry, sir.
One pilot, the first was it, skedaddle.
Is this
and
about?
The thing turns on its side. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is this about Iran? Was this about the Iran bombing?
I don't know what the fuck it's about. It's incomprehensible. That's my
Hold
point.
on. You're a doctor. You're supposed to take the time to know what the context of the remark is. So here Trump claims that the word skedaddle, which according to ChatGPT is a term which first emerged from the Union Army during the Civil War, that the pilots used this term between them during the bombing run. I have not been able to verify it.
We would practice this run for 22 years. I didn't know that. For 22 years, we had a practice. We'd do it 3 times a year. We would practice this exact run. And then when you canceled it, because I canceled when they heard that we were coming, we were devastated. I said, see, now if I were a flyer and they canceled, I'd be extremely happy. Well, we're canceled, so let's forget it. But we were devastated. So I said, this is something you really love, right? Yes, sir. We were so honored. This was the greatest day of our life. I mean, it's really great. We just have incredible people in this country. It's an amazing story. And they hit, and then they said, skedaddle, the word skedaddle. And that plane went psh, like this. You know, when it drops a bomb, it goes down very steeply because that gives it a better angle and, you know, more speed for the bomb. They're very, very heavy bombs. And they go boom. And as soon as those things, the one pilot, the first one said, skedaddle. And that thing just turned in its side. And it's so unbelievable. And
what I know is that this is word salad, and that is actually a technical term that we use. This is thought disordered speech. You can't even make this up. You can't fake a thought disordered speech.
Okay.
This is a sign of a broken brain.
One thing's for sure, Noam, you'll admit that it's not the same speech that we would have seen when he was 30 years ago in the 80s.
No, okay, so let me make the counter argument.
Or 30 years ago was the 90s.
I have heard...
Right, it's a deterioration. That is the point. That's how we diagnose.
This is my problem with it. We've all heard and seen people read, as you just have, some of Kamala Harris's greatest hits. Total word salad. Like no, they are absolutely in the same league.
No.
When nobody knows what the hell she's talking about.
You're just wrong.
Okay, well, we've heard word salad from Kamala Harris. Nobody ever thought she had.
I doubt. No, you haven't.
Now, then, of course, what was very.
Show me an example. Show me an example.
I haven't got one in front of me. So a quick YouTube search of Kamala Harris word salad turns up these examples. To be honest, I don't think she's actually incoherent. I would say she's like content-free, vacuous, circular, tautological, which is kind of remarkable. But there's no doubt in my mind that if Donald Trump were saying the precise same things, he would be mocked and it would be roundly used as evidence of his cognitive decline.
Our world is increasingly more interconnected and interdependent. That is especially true when it comes to the climate crisis, which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on.
6 of them, 6 work together, I found.
It is easy in these moments of crisis to question our faith, to sometimes lose our faith for a moment, because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know. For Jamaica, one of the issues that has been presented as an issue that is economic in the way of its impact has been the pandemic. So to that end, we are announcing today also that we will assist Jamaica in COVID recovery by assisting in terms of the recovery efforts in Jamaica that have been essential to, I believe, what is necessary to strengthen not only the issue of public health, but also the economy.
Culture is a reflection of our moment in our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning. We have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life.
So, but of course, at the same time this all happened, what was very galling to people like me was that if the headline had been Joe Biden wasn't always so linguistically challenged, what could explain his change? Joe Biden's speaking style raises questions about his brain health. Is something neurologically wrong with Joe Biden by these same doctors who are supposed to be objective people? Then I'd say, oh, okay, they're equal opportunity. They're worried about reality here. But it was shocking to me when the much more obvious decline in everything, in gait, in speech, in physicality, in stamina, in every aspect of human characteristics, which was Joe Biden. None of these doctors were writing letters about his decline. As a matter of fact, there was this guy, Jay Olshansky, this doctor that was quoted in time, who called Joe Biden a super ager. And it just makes me want to call bullshit on the entire analysis, because it's fine if you want to tell me Trump is in cognitive decline, but then you won't tell me that Joe Biden is in cognitive decline? You don't see anything there to be concerned about with Joe Biden? I couldn't find anything you ever said about Joe Biden.
Well, there was immense amount of concern about Joe Biden's cognitive status, and I guess 2 dementias don't make a right.
Were you out there? Were you out there saying that Joe Biden had dementia and the 25th Amendment should be invoked?
We were actually deceived, and I think that what happens is the people around Joe Biden basically hid him in the White House. They kept him from doing press conferences. No, but one of the look, you can't.
Doctor, that's not true. We all saw it.
You can't. Well, we didn't see that much of it, and actually, it came across very catastrophically at the debate. I think that was the moment when he had that blank look, that deer in the headlights look, that was really sort of a shock that confirmed a lot of people's suspicions.
We'd seen that 20 times prior.
Very good at keeping him out of the public eye, so we weren't able to see the decline as much as whereas Trump is all out there.
He's just not true.
Opening the full kimono. He's giving press conference after press conference where he's not answering questions, where he's digressing into incomprehensible speech, and he's just going on and people are acting like nothing is amiss.
It's simply not true. We saw clip after clip of Joe Biden not being decipherable, and the very fact that he wouldn't take questions was glaring evidence. This was a man, we all know who Joe Biden was. Joe Biden 20 years ago was the #1 guest on Meet the Press. This is a guy who would not shut up, who was a ham in front of the camera every opportunity he had, as vice president as well. And then all of a sudden he went into hiding. What could have been more obvious?
Look, I'm not defending Joe Biden, but what I'm saying is one doesn't justify the other.
No, I'm criticizing your profession. Right now. I'm criticizing your profession because everything they
do. Lots of people were raising questions about Joe Biden. Lots of people were asking. That's why people keep saying, well, if Joe Biden did this, they would be up in arms. If Joe Biden said that, well, yes, because people were already suspecting it.
Lots of people were, but not you guys. Not you guys who were after Trump. You guys only cared about Trump. This is what bothers me.
But that doesn't necessarily negate his argument about Trump.
No, it doesn't. But it means that, like I said, you want to believe, you want to assess, the expert opinion, and you would like your expert to not show any signs of having an emotional involvement in this, and that's it. Just, to me, the strongest evidence is the fact that I spoke with John Bolton personally. I spoke with Michael Cohen, and they did not say that Trump and Michael Cohen, hates. I found myself at a table with Michael Cohen just by coincidence, and he hates Trump, and he's a liar, and he's a creep, and he ended up putting Michael Cohen wound up in jail because of his loyalty to Trump. He would not tell me that Trump has in cognitive decline.
Yeah, had you asked the question directly?
Yeah, I asked him everything. Okay, but let's just look just for fun, because I rushed to download some YouTube videos. This is going to show Joe Biden in 2010, Joe Biden prior to the 2024 election, Trump in 2016, and Trump also prior to the 2024 election. So let's play that. And Steve, go ahead. I don't know which is first, and then hopefully you'll be able to hear it too, just so we see the actual decline. And by the way, you should watch Trump on the Joe Rogan show. It's tough to square that with a guy in serious cognitive decline. I have to say.
When people have dementia, they vary in their functioning. They have good days and bad days. They have good times of day and bad times of day. So the fact that you can show Trump being articulate in one show at one time doesn't prove anything.
Fair enough.
But the New York Times says that now he's only in the office from noon to 5.
Oh, he's 80 years old.
And he's passing out. Well, he's passing out. But the reason they're stopping things at 5 is because in the evening he starts to sundown. He becomes more incomprehensible.
Well, you don't know that.
Vin Gupta,
you don't know that.
Dr. Vin Gupta said, this is a direct quote from Dr. Vin Gupta, okay, who's not known as being a partisan. He said, it's clear there's age-related cognitive decline. That's obvious. He's confused a lot. He sometimes mumbles incoherent nonsense when he's asked a question in the press pool or in the Oval Office. So it's a little too late to go, what about Biden? What about Biden? Biden's not president, okay? So Biden's a little irrelevant.
No, it's not too late.
Well, we have someone at the helm who is president, who is showing gross signs of cognitive decline.
Okay, like I said, you should send me whatever it is. I want to share the gross signs with the audience, and I will edit them into the thing. I don't know what Gupta's referring to, but let's just play this. What's that?
They just allow Medicare to bargain for the cost of drugs like Medicaid can. That would save $156 billion right off the bat.
And it would deny seniors choices.
How do I pause it, Steve? This is not working. My pauser.
Sorry, I don't know why, but I can pause it for you.
Okay, we'll just say this is the debate between Paul Ryan and Biden in 2012, I guess. Go ahead, play it. You can continue. You can hear hear Biden. Go ahead.
Seniors are not denied. So
absolutely.
They are not denied. Look, folks, all you seniors out there, have you been denied choices? Have you lost Medicare Advantage?
Because it's working on right now.
Signed up? Because
Vice President Biden, let me ask you, if it could help solve the problem, why not very slowly raise the Medicare eligibility age by 2 years, as Congressman Ryan suggests?
Look, I was there when we did that with Social Security in 1983. I was one of 8 people sitting in the room that included Tip O'Neill negotiating with President Reagan. We all got together and everybody said, as long as everybody's in the deal, and everybody is making some sacrifice, we can find a way.
Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
And how will you answer the charge from Hillary
This is actually Trump. Now you're going to see Trump in 8 years. Go ahead.
Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people.
Now pause that for 1 second, Stephen. I want to say at this time, this Trump people were saying was showing evidence of cognitive decline. Go ahead. Go, Steve.
Frankly, have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. This country is in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico, both in trade and at the border. We lose to everybody. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time. What I say is what I say. And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Now, this is last year.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't.
All right. So to me, the difference between Trump and Trump is I don't see any difference. And the difference between Biden and Biden is so drastic. And yet the experts told me that Trump was the one I should be worried about, and Biden, no, nothing to see here. And this just discredits everything to me. I'm sorry. As Dan said, you're right. It doesn't. And by the way, I never said, just
to
so
be
you,
honest.
Wait, let me just say one more thing, because you don't know me. I actually, on this show, always said, I'm not convinced that Biden's I mean, he's in some age-related decline, but that I'm not sure that meant he was out of it, like he couldn't be wise and make good decisions as president. I don't know, enough about it, but I'm not even want to say that Biden is senile, but I just can't believe that people were pretending that what we all saw in front of our own eyes wasn't real. Mm-hmm. And yet those two Trumps were supposed to be like some huge, don't you see the difference? I don't see any difference. So go ahead.
Look, the whole method of your argument is specious, and here's why.
You sound like my wife.
Who have dementia. She might know something about you, maybe. I don't know.
Go ahead.
It sounds like my wife too, though. In all fairness, by showing him being articulate at one moment in time doesn't prove anything, because the nature of dementia is that people have great variability, the good days and bad days. So showing him being compos mentis for a few moments or at a certain selected, edited piece of video doesn't prove anything.
What about the opposite? Showing somebody inarticulate at a certain period of time, does that prove anything?
Well, yes, because the point is, because
more likely,
precisely
right?
Because when you well, if you show someone unable to put two sentences together, unable to speak in a coherent way, even if they could speak in a coherent way 2 hours earlier or 2 hours later, the point is that only if you have some kind of organic decline can you show such a complete flagrant symptoms, but they're not consistent. They vary from moment to moment.
Is it significant
the time of day? It doesn't prove anything to show him.
Is it significant the time of day of that clip we saw, the debate clip we saw, which I assume was a nighttime?
Well, the time of day can be very relevant. One of the things that happened during the campaign is we noticed on our podcast that he would be more incoherent in the evening. And after a while, they stopped scheduling him for evening activities. They tried to schedule as many things as possible during the day. And that's what they're doing now in the White House by having him work 12 to 5. I mean, work in 12 to 5. It's not exactly a long day, okay? Because they know he deteriorates as the day goes on.
Well, we'll see. My gut tells me He's not in decline. I was taken to a Trump rally one time, and I went as kind of like as a journalist, and to see what all the fuss was about. And I did see he was totally out of gas. It was late. He was obviously tired. He was slurring his words a little bit. Slurring was maybe an overstatement, but you could hear. But it read as exhaustion to me. And then after, and he was a little meandering. He likes to just riff and talk about whatever's coming into his head. But to his credit, and he said this, but it's true, he wouldn't leave the thread and never return to it. He'd say something, say, "Oh, look, a deer," and start talking about something else. But then he did go back to what he had left to tie up
his
end.
weave.
Yes, I get it. I feel funny saying it because he said it as his excuse, but I have to be honest. He did do that. He didn't just leave loose ends But I say, but
it is an excuse, and it's bullshit.
Well, it may be bullshit, but it's better.
Someone asked him.
Let me say one more thing. I just finished my story. So after that thing, I went and I looked up, because it was available, what Trump's schedule was that day. This guy had been traveling around it was his third public speaking engagement that day. He had been flying around on a plane since like 5 a.m. in the morning. He's going here, he's going there. When I read the schedule that this man had kept that day to then appear at the appearance that I saw, and I tried to imagine myself, I was like, I could not keep up. And he's doing it every day. This is a tremendous amount of stamina. I was shocked. And I said, well, I have to discount whatever it is by the fact that this guy is working like a dog. Go ahead.
But look, he has a lot of energy. I happen to think that he's also on the bipolar spectrum. That that's why he's hate tweeting 180 tweets in a night. So he has a lot of animal energy. But you talk about the weave. He would say, they're bringing these immigrants from insane asylums. And the next thing he says, anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late great Hannibal Lecter. They don't like to talk about him anymore.
That's genius.
Oh, that's genius, right? Sure. No, that's called a loose association.
He is very
telling the lie that
he is very
the immigrants
different.
are coming from insane asylums. Then you want to talk about a movie about an insane asylum because that reminded you of the movie you saw, and then you want to ask if anyone remembers the deceased fictional character. Which is also crazy. And then, of course, because he's so malevolent, he talks about how wonderful Hannibal Lecter is. Oh, they don't want to talk about him anymore, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. But it's a non sequitur. It's a loose association. When someone asked him about Harvard, and aren't you attacking academic freedom? He says, well, the people in Harlem, he starts talking about people in Harlem because Harlem and Harvard both start with H. And you're right. After he starts talking about Harlem, and, I got the black vote. Blacks really love me. And he goes, and the people in Harlem agree with what I'm doing in Harvard. So yeah, he brought it back in a loose kind of dissociated, gumming things together sort of way, but it doesn't make any sense. There's no relationship between Harlem and Harvard except they both start with H.
Where do you draw the line between normal aging? As Noam said, he forgets people's names. Obviously, when you get older, there's going to be some decline. So where do you then say, well, no, this isn't normal aging?
Yeah, and that's a very important point, and it is a important and sometimes might seem like subtle distinction. But he's showing a level of thought disorder that is beyond normal limits. The other sign in terms of his verbal stuff is what we call phonemic paraphasias, where he actually, you saw this on social media as a comedy thing, where they would string together all these ways in which he had these malapropisms when he mispronounced words, but. A phonemic paraphasia is where you use a word that is not a real word, but it has a piece of a word in it, and you just kind of mangle it. He does this dozens and dozens of times.
Isn't that what George Bush did? George W. Bush was accused of doing that? Strategery or something? I don't think he actually said strategery, but that was the... Yeah.
It's a good word.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and actually, look, one of these things alone might, be small, but... When you're talking about this level of thought disorder, it isn't just when people get old or get tired. Look, you're right. I forget names too, but you might say Chuck Schumer came with, the guy,
the black
but
dude.
He actually, right, the black guy, you know who I mean. I had this conversation last night with a friend of mine who's my age, and we literally, it was almost like we were talking in code. It's like, you know what I mean, the guy I mean, but I knew I couldn't grab the name, right? So I was struggling with it. So I just say, but I knew I didn't know the name. This is a whole different level. It's not like actually meeting Hakeem Jeffries in your office, someone that you basically have to deal with on a daily basis. And it's not just you can't get his name. You act as if you've never seen him before in your life, like you're a total blank. That's a different level of memory disorder. It's just different. It's not the same. It's not forgetting someone's name. It's actually forgetting you've ever met someone who you've had extensive contact with on a daily basis recently.
I don't believe the Hakeem Jeffries story. Dan, what do you remember the joke? Like two old
Again,
guys.
Look it up. What do you mean you don't believe it? Look it up.
I don't believe that he's seeing the guy every day and then doesn't remember who he is. I don't believe that.
What's the joke?
But it could be. I will look it up. I just find that hard to believe.
You can't make this stuff up.
But no, Hakeem Jeffries became the majority leader, whatever, Speaker of the House, whatever he was. Did he ever become Speaker? I can't remember. But
no, he's minority leader.
But did he have any time as Speaker when when the Democrats were the majority? I don't even know.
No.
Okay, so he's
minority
minority
leader.
leader.
Two behind Pelosi.
And Trump wasn't in office then. And so I don't know why Trump would have been in touch with him. And I don't even know. I don't. But the joke, like two old guys, and one old guy says, you must know, the old guy says, I'm having trouble, with my memory as I'm getting older. How are you doing? He says, oh, I just went to the doctor. He gave me this great drug. My mind's like 40 years old again. His friend says, really? What is it? Tell me about it. I want to take it. He goes, what's the flower? It's a long stem. It's red.
Yeah, rose.
And it's got thorns. His friend says, rose. He goes, yeah. Rose, what's that medicine the doctor gave?
Yeah, I've heard.
Like, you don't get it. Did I tell it badly?
Yeah, that's the joke. That's the joke that I heard.
I can't remember his wife's name.
Right. I've heard. Yeah. So you're predicting? You're going a step further and predicting a total non-compos mentis by the end of the term.
Yeah,
that's
I don't think he can make it to the end of his term. I don't think he can make it. But, right now it could be the weekend at Bernie's White House. He could be complete because the people around him are such flunkies. I don't know that they'll ever invoke the 25th Amendment. I used to think, well, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for the mainstream media to admit that this guy has cognitive decline when he's babbling incoherently in the Oval Office? Is that what it's going to take? Well, apparently that's not enough because he's doing that now.
Did he forget who? I think we said two different things. Did he not recognize Jeffries or just couldn't remember his name?
No, he said, and Chuck Schumer brought a very nice man with him. He brought a very nice man. In other words, he's not just forgetting his name. I'll give anyone a pass for forgetting a name. Okay. He's drawing a blank as if he's never heard of or seen this person in his life when he's one of the major people in government that he has to deal with on a regular basis. This isn't some obscure congressman. Okay. It's the minority leader.
Yeah, but he could say very nice man because he's trying to maneuver around the fact he can't remember his name. All right, well, I'll look it up. I'll put the video, and I got work to do. Damn it! I'm looking for the headlines. All right. Well, anyway, I don't know that's anything else you want to tell us about all this?
That's
subject?
actually a very good point. If you couldn't remember somebody's name, what would you say? Well, and he brought. What might he?
He brought Trump. I'm in the old days I would have made jokes. I'm imagining Trump is like Archie Bunker. He brought that colored guy with him, but he can't. Trump would never say it out loud. But that we do imagine. We do imagine.
Well, very nice man seems like a reasonable thing that you might say if you were mortified by the fact that you couldn't remember somebody's name.
Yeah, it is really disconcerting when you can't remember a name. I tell you that it bothers me. But what are you going to do?
Well, it's not as bad.
But we're not talking about a name. We're not talking about a word-finding problem. We're not talking about a name. We're talking about total non-recognition, as if he'd never seen this person before in his life.
Do you have
That's different.
Do you have any advice on any supplements that we aging people can take to help us with our memory? You must be on top of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that really works. There's Aricept, but I think it's basically bullshit. Look, there's other things. He has shown increasing signs of being disoriented. If you saw that film of him in Japan, right? He looked blank. He looked confused. He was sort of staring into space. The prime minister of Japan looked obviously shocked. 3 times she had to take him, literally, physically move him along and direct him.
Right. You jogged
at one point.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then at one point, he actually wanders away. He actually and he's been doing this more. Talk about things that are getting worse. We've seen other film of him wandering away from his limo, wandering away from the plane, wandering.
You jogged my memory.
The wrong way.
You jogged my memory earlier, so we didn't.
But here, they actually had to go retrieve him. He went off camera, 20 soldiers down in the wrong direction, and someone had to go and retrieve him.
You jogged my memory because you said we didn't see this stuff with Biden. We saw precisely that with Biden more than one time.
We did see that.
One time
we saw a couple of times where he did that.
One time we saw Barack Obama have to take him by the hand and lead him off the stage. This was so obvious, and yet the medical community was silent.
Well, I think there was a lot of press about it. I think there was more press about Biden's decline than there's been about Trump's. So I think it's been,
but not from you guys. I didn't see any articles in the Atlantic.
I don't know who you guys are, but if you talk about
you people,
you people, yeah, right.
You're one of the 27
people you're referring to.
One of the 27 doctors that signs the letter. Yeah.
First of all, if your argument is Biden did it too, that's not a very strong argument in defense of Trump. It's like the dementia calling the other demented person, the kettle calling the pot black.
No,
I mean, 2 dementias don't make a right.
No, but
it's not a defense of Trump to say that Biden shows some of the same symptoms. No, and Biden is not president now. That is not our problem.
No, that's not my argument.
Well, 2 things can be true. He could have an agenda, and he could be right.
We said that. I'm impeaching the expert witness here in the sense that everything that you're saying should be like, what's the matter with you? Don't you see this? This is blatant evidence. Was evidence existed with Joe Biden even more starkly in relief. And doctors who are merely, I'm just doing this because I love my country, as opposed to, I have nothing against Donald Trump. I'm not part of the resistance, even though you were candid enough to say part of the resistance. I'm not part of the resistance. I have to speak up when I see something that is dangerous for the country. When those people didn't speak up, when Joe Biden was doing every bit the same and more obvious, then I have to wonder whether or not in some way this is being fueled by political opposition rather than patriotism. Now, Dan is right. That doesn't mean it could very well be that you guys are right about Trump and you're covering for Biden. But yet, it would be nice to hear you guys say, to own it and say, you know what, America, I know we look bad because it was right in front of our nose and we need to explain to you. We owe you an explanation as to why we only talked about Trump and we never once talked about Biden. And if your explanation to the American people is going to be, well, no, it was hidden. Nobody saw that. You're gonna cut yourself off at the knees because nobody's buying that. Everybody knows you guys covered for him. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows.
Well, if we covered for him, we did a really terrible job because stories about his cognitive decline were constant in the media. And look, again, so yes, I have a political point of view, but you have to address the facts that I'm bringing to you, okay? Not just keep impeaching my own political views. You're not addressing the facts.
No, I did. First of all, I'm open to what you're saying. So there's certain, especially the things that have happened most recently. I don't want to have a strong opinion about it because, yes, of course, at some point he's 80 years old. At some point, it even becomes likely that he'll have cognitive decline. So whatever happened in 2016 and 2017 is really not relevant to me not believing he has it now. I'm totally open to it. But I do find my argument about his first term to be very compelling, which is that Michael Wolff notwithstanding, the people in his most inner circle who were trying to warn us not to elect him again, none of them said he's in cognitive decline. And I don't find that possible. I don't find it possible that the people who work 8 hours a day with you, who are now writing books to try to make sure that you're not elected again, if they witness cognitive decline, wouldn't say so, number one. And number two, I don't believe it's possible they wouldn't witness it if it was real. So I do not believe he had cognitive decline at the time you guys were first saying he did. He might have it now. How do I know?
Well, the signs were subtler then, but again, you have to go back and look at the eyewitness reports of people in his administration who were saying he's deteriorated.
You're going to send me those.
Since
You're going to send me those.
He's not the same person. Yeah, I mean, but
when we hang up, you got to send me those.
Is there a quick, easy?
All right, I'll send it to you. But I'm not making it up.
I'm not saying you're making it up, but we're that kind of show. We like to show evidence.
It's a deteriorating illness. So the signs are subtle at first, then they accelerate. And they get worse and worse and worse. And look, that's what we're seeing. Look, that tape you showed of Trump at the debate, he's deteriorated since then. Look at the way he can't even answer a question now half the time in the Oval Office. First, he just attacks them in a disinhibited way. And by that, that's one of the things about dementia is it makes people more disinhibited and impulsive. He's starting to show that kind of disinhibition. And first of all, he's always kind of impulsive and crude, but he's getting worse. It's getting worse in terms of first he started cursing, then he started calling people names, shut up, piggy.
Well, he did that.
And he's doing things so impulsively.
He did that to Rosie O'Donnell. He did that to Rosie O'Donnell. He did it to Carly Fiorina. He's a vulgar guy. I mean, let's not.
Is
He's a vulgar guy, but now it's every reporter. Every time they ask him a question, you're stupid. You're a duty face. You're it's like a 3-year-old. He's just spewing out this venom in a more disinhibited, primitive, and disorganized way.
We will see.
And the impulsivity is showing up in other ways that affect national security. Look, he was having a trade negotiation with the Prime Minister of Canada, and because Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, published put on social media a video of Ronald Reagan talking about he's against tariffs, and he goes, "That's it. I'm not even gonna meet with the President of Canada anymore. I'm not gonna talk to him." Like he's just impulsively, willy-nilly. Like if he gets pissed off in the morning, I guess kills a few more Venezuelan fishing boats or something. He just acts out. He always was acting out, but now it's worse.
Just
it's
to be clear,
impulsive, more disorganized.
I haven't been following it. Those were fishing boats. They weren't drug runners.
Well, there's really been no evidence, first of all, of what they were. Second of all, even if they were drug boats, which we have no evidence of, it's against the rules of war to
that's another,
kill them rather than eject them. That's the amoral part, okay? But I'm saying that he's doing things in a very impulsive way, is what I'm saying. He's falling asleep all over the place.
Hold on. As far as
that's not normal either.
Listen, I'm a stickler, but about the drug boats. I imagine that this bubbles up from within the Pentagon. There's lawyers involved in some way. It goes through Hegseth. They have their own interpretations of the law in the same way Bush had his lawyer tell him it's okay to torture or waterboard, whatever it is. But I don't think that Trump is targeting Venezuelan fishermen. I think it's likely Trump is told that he's killing drug runners, and he might not give a shit whether it's legal or not. Not like presidents have always been sticklers. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bush went and grabbed Noriega and for drug running, but the presidents break rules to handle very serious problems. These drugs kill Americans, right? I have a teenage daughter. Well, I'm quite worried about this stuff. So I don't know if that's a sign of dementia. That's what I'm saying. Like Obama droned people in their tents and killed children, right? And people have thought that violated the rules of war.
I think this more gets to personality disorder, than the dementia. But just a little factoid: you're saying, well, they must have run this by the Pentagon lawyers. They actually fired not one person, but the entire department in the military, whose job it is to weigh in on the legality or illegality of military actions.
You're describing
they just fired the whole department.
You're describing what they're
an authoritarian. There are no experts who can weigh in.
You're describing
an authoritarian.
But not mentally ill. Yeah.
No. Look, the problem is he's both. Okay, he is a malignant narcissist. He is an authoritarian. So he's a monster to begin with. Now he's a monster who's losing his cognitive functioning, which is even worse.
Last question, and then Perry might want to say. I mean, he clearly seems narcissistic and as a layman who tries to understand what that means, right? But there is one thing I notice, and I try to understand it. He does engender certain loyalty from his children, which, as I understand it, is not usual for narcissists. Usually narcissists descend into bad relationships with their kids. But his children...
Oh, really?
That's not true? I'd read that somewhere. You tell me.
Where are his children now? They all seem to want to be running away from him. You notice they were so involved in the first administration. Now they're nowhere to be seen. I mean, he's so toxic that they don't want to be near him.
But
his wife doesn't. He hates him.
Well,
she doesn't want to be near him. Except the times when she's kind of holding him up when he seems like he's falling. She's kind of guiding him.
Is Noam's premise valid, though, that narcissists typically have poor relationships with their children?
Well, the thing is I think the truth is he has poor relations with almost anybody, other than his work, with the cult followers. To know him is really to hate him. And this is more about the malignant narcissism than the dementia. But he's such a toxic, malignant personality that eventually he falls out with everyone. He has transactional relationships with people who can make him rich or who he's got corrupt relationships with. But eventually, everybody becomes disgusted with him, or actually, what's interesting is there's been a kind of purging, and this happens actually with authoritarian leaders. It's not unique to him. It's true of Saddam Hussein. It's true of Hitler. It's true of Stalin. Okay, that the normal people keep getting purged, or the people who are, have some vestige of a conscience or some expertise or some independent knowledge about their field. Those people eventually have to be purged, because the only people an authoritarian like him can have in their administration are psychopaths and fanatical true believers and opportunistic yes people who are just trying to use him to gain power and influence and money. So now we've really gotten to what we call a kakistocracy, a government by the worst of the worst. These are the worst people. Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel. I mean, these people are total psychopaths who really know nothing about their own. One of the criteria to be in the Trump cabinet is you have to know nothing about your own field. There's a reason for that. Because if somebody knows something, right, then they could contradict him.
We've got to wrap it up. I'm gonna presume to tell you, give you an opinion on something, and then I'll ask you a question. I'm gonna presume to tell you something, which is I'm forgetting a word, but I'm taking a liberty.
We're going to give you the mocha after
this. It's a little chutzpah on my part to say this to somebody I don't know. To the extent that you want to be believed, you should not show your cards at how upset you are about the politics of this stuff. Hegseth and this, it undercuts the objectivity, the arm's length, the notion that you're having an arm's length consideration of the case of Donald Trump, because clearly you're animated by anger at everything about his administration, his policies. Like I said, I'm going back to my double blind thing, but here's my question. He's a sick man.
Do you think Pete Hegseth is qualified to be the secretary of War?
I think it has
the
nothing.
Guy was a Fox and Friends. He wasn't even on the A team of Fox and Friends. He was on the weekend Saturday edition. He was the B team. And he's known for being a drunk even in Fox.
If I have to go to the doctor for the doctor to tell me whether my wife is or isn't suffering from cognitive decline, I don't want the doctor to also indicate. I fucking always hated that bitch. That is going to be like, you know what? You're not the guy to tell me whether she has cognitive decline. That's my point. But here's my question. The man is sick. Do you have any sympathy for him? As a doctor, you're describing cognitive decline, dementia. That's not his fault.
He was evil before he became demented. So the fact that he is harming so many millions of people and destroying our country and trying to essentially burn down our Constitution to the ground, no, I really don't have any sympathy for him.
You don't have any sympathy for a sick man suffering from a disease?
Not if he's harming millions of other people. No, I don't.
All right, I give you points for honesty, doctor. Honestly, I do. I don't know what ethical code that violates. It's got to violate some kind of medical.
He's allowed to hate people. He's not hating him for his illness. He's hating him for who he is, and then he just so happens to have this illness.
No, like Israel, they gave Sinwar brain surgery, right? The doctors there, I'm sure they thought Sinwar was evil, but they felt their ethical obligation was to help a sick man. But you say,
well, the
fuck,
problem is
fuck
there's
Donald
no treatment
Trump.
for what he has. There's no treatment for dementia, and there's no treatment for malignant narcissism. It's an untreatable personality disorder. So if there was some way to help him, I wouldn't.
We finally agree on something. Therapy is bullshit. Therapy. All right.
Only for people who are untreatable.
Listen, you're a very charming guy and a very good sport, and you argue with good vibes.
How would you rate the Trump impression?
The Trump impression is a little work.
Well, it's certainly not as good as some of the people that work here. But
so where are you looking?
I'm sure it's true.
You're in Baltimore?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, if you ever get to New York, we'd love to meet you in person and hang out. You can tell me what you really think.
I'd like that.
All right, Dr. Gardner, very nice to meet you. Was this Riverside or Zoom? Zoom. Okay, so you can just disconnect at your pleasure. Thank you very much. I hope you had a good experience.
All right.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. That's fun.
Very pleasant.
Very nice guy.